Hello, and thank you for joining ImageCon. We're here to discuss some of the key trends revealed as part of our annual report, The State of Visual Media. Each year for this report, we analyze a massive amount of visual related data. We look at billions of image and video assets across nearly 700 enterprise customers, from major e-commerce brands to leaders in media, publishing, education, travel, and entertainment. This year, this treasure trove of data revealed and reaffirmed several key trends companies should be aware of as we return to a post-pandemic world. A world that requires new tools and new thinking when it comes to building better, faster connections through modern and immersive visual storytelling. And with that, I'd like to turn to our panel of experts to discuss some of these trends. Joining the discussion, we have John Snyers, who is a senior image researcher here at Cloudinary and co-creator of the new JPEG XL format. We have Amit Arental, who heads up our business line for video, and Eric Portis, our web platform advocate. Thank you all for being here. John, let's dig into the world of image formats and why modern formats are so critical today. In our research, we found that while JPEG and PNG are still leading formats, more lightweight formats like WebP are catching up super quickly, and others like JP2 are gaining traction. Can you share with us why these new lighter file formats are dethroning older legacy formats like JPEG XL?
Sure. I think there's four major reasons why people are looking into more modern image codecs. One is obviously you want to get your page to load as quickly as possible and that means also that the images appear as quickly as possible. Because very often what is called the LCP, the largest contentful paint, is going to be an image. And to get a better page rank, to get a better user experience, you need to get those images to look to appear quickly. So one thing that you can already do is start using progressive JPEG instead of sequential JPEG and use modern JPEG encoders like MOSJPEG. But also the more modern codecs that can cause the images to load even quicker. The second main concern is saving bandwidth, because bandwidth is costly both for servers and for consumers. In many cases, at least, it's a good idea in general to try to reduce bandwidth consumption. And better compression can lead to significant reductions in bandwidth while preserving the image fidelity. Then a third point is that the newer codecs enable more creative web design. For instance, the WebP codec that is now universally available, it's supported in all browsers. It makes it possible to have photographic images on the web that also have alpha transparency, which is something that wasn't really possible in the past because the JPEG format doesn't support transparency, and you could theoretically have a photographic image in PNG, but that doesn't compress very well. So WebP makes it possible now to do these things that weren't possible before. And then finally, I think another major reason to start using modern codecs is better image fidelity and better color fidelity as well. So the old codecs are good for 8-bit SDR, standard dynamic range, and standard color gamuts like sRGB. But for HDR, for wide gamut like P3 and Rec 2020, we really need higher bit depth and newer codecs like AVIF or JPEG XL. And in general, the modern codecs are better at preserving image fidelity, avoiding visible compression artifacts, and thus giving better images overall on the web and everywhere, basically.
Well, speaking of JPEG XL, and as the format co-creator and chair of the JPEG XL ad hoc group in the JPEG committee, can you tell us more about it? And when can we expect or hope to see JPEG XL usage appear in our report data?
So JPEG XL or JXL, as it's usually abbreviated, is a next generation image codec that is designed to be the successor to JPEG and also to PNG. It's both doing lossy and lossless compression, and it's very good at medium to high fidelity lossy encoding, but it's also the best available in lossless compression. It was also specifically designed with the web in mind, so it has, for instance, new progressive decoding capabilities that are a lot more advanced than what you could do in the old JPEG codec. So there's a lot of new codecs, and the main difference between a lot of the proposals that are there, like WebP, AVIF, and HEEC, and JPEG XL, is that JPEG XL was designed to be an image codec from the start. So all the design decisions that we made when we were creating the bitstream specification were made with that in mind and with that purpose. Whereas a lot of the other codecs are basically video codecs that have an image format that is just a single frame video. For instance, WebP is basically VP8, single frame. HEEC is basically HEFC, and AVIF is basically a single frame AV1. And these video codecs are, of course, great codecs, and they are a lot more sophisticated than the old JPEG codec, but they are not really designed for still images. So, for example, progressive decoding of a single video frame doesn't really make much sense. But for still images on the web, progressive decode is very important to get a better user experience. Also, the kind of fidelity that the codecs are optimized for tends to be quite a bit lower, because for web delivery, you don't really need extremely high fidelity video on a per frame basis, because a single frame is something you only look at for 40 milliseconds or less. Whereas in still images, we do want to have higher fidelity. So when can we expect to see JPEG XL in our data? We might already start seeing it a little bit. Chrome and Firefox have already started experimental support, so people who want to can enable the flag to get JPEG XL support, and Cloudinary already supports it. So if you are a Cloudinary customer, you can already start using it. But of course, the majority of users will use the default settings, and there is no browser where it has been enabled by default yet. So at the moment, the only way you can really use it is if you have a mobile application where you have JPEG XL support in the application itself. That would be one way to do it. But for now on the web, it's still not really usable. However, the moment that one of the browsers decides to enable it by default, Cloudinary can immediately start using it as well. And a lot of our customers are using automatic format selection. So once JPEG XL becomes an option, they won't even have to do anything, and they can automatically get the best available compression just by using the automatic format selection.
Well, let's hope that happens soon and that we see lots of traction in our 2022 data. Thank you so much, John. Now let's turn the topic over to video. It should surprise no one to hear that we saw a huge rise in video. Video traffic grew significantly during the pandemic. Video views nearly doubled, and our bandwidth grew almost 140% in Q2 of 2020 alone, just as the pandemic began. Amit, clearly brands have a really big opportunity with video. What kinds of new and creative video use cases are you seeing with our customers and beyond?
Thank you, Julie. So in general, we see three big trends. We see more viewers, we see higher consumption per viewer, and we see these viewers reaching videos from more screens, either bigger screens or connected TVs and iOS devices, such as cooking devices. And we also see adoption around and across new industries that adapting video, and of course, new and innovative use cases for utilizing of video. So in terms of new industries, few examples, we see video usage in fitness apps, in dating apps, cooking, art and music, of course, and retail and e-commerce. In terms of new use cases, we see these industries adapting. So live streaming, and also we see the importance of post-event live to VOD, Enterprise video, either team communication, internal and external events, personalization, mainly in email marketing and advertising, and of course video commerce across the entire customer experience, including live commerce and of course shoppable videos. UGC and influencer marketing are on rise, mainly in commerce and social, and we see more and more video advertising usage across all channels. And in order to deliver these new use cases, of course, developers and brands are experimenting and adapting new technology across the entire video lifecycle. So from creative automation to artificial intelligence and to advanced video codecs such as AV1.
Looking at the data, while video use is rising, we see so many brands that aren't utilizing it as much as they can be or could be. What should brands be thinking about? What should developers be paying attention to? And how can they utilize the latest technology to unleash the full potential of their video?
So I'll break the answer to three main parts. One is UX and quality of experience. And the second one is how to reach your business results with video through engagement and conversion. And the third one is scale and scale in a smart way. So in terms of the first part, which is about the UX, we should always start from the viewer experience. So from the UX perspective, make sure to handle accessibility right. Add captions, subtitles, and audio descriptions. Let the viewer have control. Pause, play, mute, and volume controls. Autoplay is very powerful and use it carefully. Don't break browser and OS specs. Make sure previews, thumbnails, titles are reflective of the content to drive call to action. And for utilizing UGC, make sure you need to keep it safe. So make sure to moderate it and pay attention to audio quality. And also, in order to capture more and more UGC content, make sure to support streamline upload and preview process for the content creator. And especially for UGC, but not only, not all content is captured in the same orientation as the consumption device. So make sure to follow the social media specs and your own app graphical design. In terms of quality of experience, of course, today your audience expects a state-of-the-art viewer experience wherever they are, and with the internet growing, we'll see more and more audience coming from low connectivity areas. Therefore, you need to choose the best video format for your viewer device. Make sure to utilize content-aware encoding and also use the latest codecs. AV1 is a great example of a game-changing codec. You can deliver a better viewer experience to any given bandwidth. And for longer form videos, consider adaptive bitrate versus progressive downloads, mainly to improve buffer time. And also make sure to normalize sound level across your video creatives and make sure they are not reaching the upper limits. In terms of how to utilize new technology to reach your business goals, so it's about engaging and conversion, mainly through the mechanism of personalization. You can do email marketing personalization, you can utilize geo and language-based personalization. Shoppable videos are a great way to convert viewers to shoppers. Utilize previews and other call to actions. Utilize playlists and recommendations to drive more and more video views. And of course, keep your brand memorable. So utilize the player configuration to add your own brand colors, logos, and fonts. In terms of the way to scale it and make sure you're running your operation in the most efficient way, so I'll start from, again, from UGC. Make sure that you have a quick upload and JSON process. So you can handle a lot of UGC content. Utilize your own media asset is a great idea. You have images and existing videos, and you can automatically create new videos, new video creatives based on these. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, great mechanism for adding captions, subtitles, do audio moderation, and of course supports also visual moderation and the automatic creation of preview and thumbnail instructions. In terms of the management aspects, utilize object detection, scene detection, celebrity detection, other computer vision capabilities to innovate and drive content reuse and team efficiency. AI is like 1,000 fast interns in a box. In terms of content manipulation, you can today utilize the technology that takes a video that was captured in one orientation, automatically transfer it to a different orientation, and therefore you have more versions of your content ready for you. And make sure to utilize APIs and webhooks to connect your video technology to your current tech stack to drive more efficiency. And last point, use personalized videos, shoppable videos, because they are very powerful. And today you can create them automatically and scale your entire activity around video.
Thanks, Amit. That was great. I think, a lot for brands to consider. Really good advice, and grateful that video, right, is allowing us to do this today. So, Eric, another important report finding was around the power of peer referrals in microbrowsers. Our data shows that microbrowsers such as iMessage, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Slack, they're increasingly popular, and they account for a lot of our traffic for our customers globally. As these environments remain increasingly important engagement opportunities for brands, let's start out by explaining what they are. What are microbrowsers?
Yeah, so when people share URLs in social or messaging channels, what often gets presented to end users is a rich preview. So microbrowsers are the tiny headless browsers that fetch those bits and pieces from the linked pages and assemble those rich previews. So for instance, let's say you paste a URL into a messages chat or a tweet or your company Slack. What happens? After you press send, the URL is immediately transformed, some say unfurled, into a bigger, richer click target, which has been assembled from content pulled from the linked page. So maybe the URL unfurls into a favicon and a page title, or maybe it turns into a big image and a full text description. Maybe even a whole video starts popping up and autoplaying. So how do those pieces make it from the linked page into the chat? They're fetched by microbrowsers, which are in a sense bots sent out by these various social and messaging apps to pull things from URLs that people are sharing and present them in line in those social and messaging channels. That's the technical answer. Business-wise, what microbrowsers are is really a golden opportunity for you as a site owner. Because these days, many times, users' first impressions aren't coming from your homepage or the URL design or even a Google search result. It's these little rich previews that are appearing as users do that most valuable form of marketing that there is, word of mouth social sharing. And the cool thing is these social and messaging apps and the microbrowsers, they really want information from you. They want good, rich previews to present to their users. So there's a whole special set of markup called Open Graph tags that they all support, which you can use to specifically give microbrowsers the pieces that they need to build beautiful, informative previews. You can design that first impression, and you absolutely should.
Awesome. So why should brands, knowing that these environments are so hard and maybe even impossible for marketers to track, why should brands care so much about what these environments look like and why they should be so visually rich?
Yeah, so I'll quibble a little bit with your use of the word impossible. On one of the wonderful and frankly quite difficult things about designing for microbrowsers is that each microbrowser does things just a little bit differently, all the way down to the way that they fetch and store content. So for instance, Messages app on iPhones. Every time someone shares your URL and chat, Messages is going to send out a microbrowser request to the page in question, and you can actually see that in your logs. Apple doesn't make it easy. It disguises the user agent to look like a normal browser. But if you put an image URL into your Open Graph tags that doesn't appear anywhere else on your site, and you know the specific user agent to look for, you can absolutely track how many times your page has been shared via Messages. Now, hooking those shares up to actual clicks or conversions, that is, to use your word, impossible. You can't track conversions, but you can track shares, at least on some platforms, which is pretty cool. Now, I said different microbrowsers do things differently. Some of them make tracking quite a bit harder by doing things in a more centralized fashion. So the first time someone shares a link on Facebook, Facebook pulls what it wants from that linked page's Open Graph tags or markup and caches all that content centrally on their servers. And then every subsequent share on Facebook pulls from that cache. So you could have a link that's being shared hundreds of thousands of times on Facebook, but only see one hit for the Open Graph resources in your logs from Facebook's microbrowser. In the absence of hard data, you can play some games to extrapolate. If a link is doing numbers on messages, it's probably doing well on Facebook too. But I believe the heart of your question wasn't really how, it was why. If tracking is difficult, more difficult than it is on the open web, why should I care? Why should I put in the effort to design content specifically for microbrowsers? And the answer is because microbrowsers give you your first and only chance to insert yourself into the most valuable and frankly least trackable form of marketing that there is, social sharing. They're your chance to craft a first impression, inform, engage, put your best foot forward. So for instance, a personal story, a few years ago, my wife and I were house shopping. We must have sent thousands of Redfin and Zillow links back and forth to each other in our messages thread. And each time we didn't see some long inscrutable URL. We saw a picture of a house and an address and a price. And let me tell you, a picture of a beautifully restored craftsman with mature landscaping in my favorite neighborhood for, even a conceivable price is a lot more powerful than a Zillow URL.
All right, you've convinced us. We know we should do it. We want to do it. What can brands do to optimize these visual assets in their environments to get the highest returns?
Yeah, well, first of all, do something. Use these Open Graph tags to send microbrowser-specific content to microbrowsers. If you don't, they'll do their best to pull what they think is the best or most representative content from the page. But Open Graph tags are your opportunity to design that specific experience, and you should absolutely take it. Second, be visual. So while short, informative, concise text description should be the foundation of every good set of Open Graph tags, if you don't include visual content on top of that, you're missing a huge opportunity. As they say, a picture says 1,000 words. Don't just think about dropping your hero image in there. Think about crafting, you get this one image to really tell the whole story of what your page's content is. For instance, an example that I've seen is a restaurant website. By default, what was getting pulled into their microbrowser previews was just their logo, which was beautiful. But what's more important than a logo for getting someone to be interested in a restaurant is a picture of food, right? So show, don't tell. And for extra credit, you can go all the way to including video content. Messages.app in particular, if a video is short enough and small enough, it will actually autoplay it, play it by default muted and looped. And I think Amazon I've seen do a particularly good job of this, where if I share a product in a chat thread, what shows up is not just a picture of the product, but a video of someone actually using it, and seeing how something can fit into your life is so much more important and engaging than just a static image. Last but not least, test. I've mentioned a couple times that different microbrowsers do things differently, so it's vital to test on real devices. You need to be able to see what these microbrowsers are actually doing with the content that you're sending them in order to optimize it and iterate on it.
It's such great advice. And as you said, it's not a lot of work to ensure that you're just presenting, the best possible first impression for your brand. So thank you all for this. Today we've discussed just a few of the trends in our 2021 report. To learn more, I encourage you all to download the full report here on this session page and dig deeper. With so much changing about the ways in which we reach, engage, and connect with consumers and audiences of all kinds, there is one thing we know for sure. Visual media is only going to become increasingly important. It's on the rise and growing with every new generation. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of ImageCon.